Assalamualaikum everyone. My video is about the impact of subsidy. Now, governments often give financial grants to producers and consumers to encourage the production and consumption of certain commodities. Subsidies are meant to make goods affordable for the consumers, yet keep them profitable for the producers. So, we probably may not be going to the details of the reasons of giving subsidies, but what is the focus of our today's video that would be on how would this subsidy be distributed. Now, if a subsidy is given to the producer and that is the part of the A-level course, subsidies directly given to consumers are not the part of A-level course. Subsidies for the producers are. So, if I am a business person and government, for example, I own a school and there are students studying in my school, and government contacts me and tells me that we want to promote education and every student who studies in our school, in your school, will pay him or her a subsidy, for example, 1,000 rupees a month. Now, what will be my preference? My preference would be to keep that 1,000 rupees with me instead of sharing with the students. Instead of lowering the fee, I will keep the extra 1,000 with me so that my profits go up. However, market forces may compel me to share some of the subsidy with my consumer, that is the student in this case, or the parent who is paying the fee. And how would I transfer that subsidy to the parents? By lowering the fee. So will I be lowering the fee or keeping the price or fee unchanged? If I keep the price unchanged, I'll get the subsidy from the government. But if I have to lower the price exactly by the amount of subsidy, then it's a consumer, it's the parent or the student who is getting the benefit of the subsidy. Will I share the subsidy by lowering the fee, or will I have the subsidy with me by having the fee unchanged? That depends upon PED and PES. So briefly speaking, if my customer has low PED, low elasticity, they'll get greater share. Low elasticity, greater share. It's similar to the impact to taxes. Low tax, greater burden on consumer. Low elasticity of demand, greater share of subsidy for the consumer. So first we show the impact of subsidy between consumer and producers. So first we draw a diagram where we draw a demand and supply curve which are almost identical in slopes, so that we can say that the elasticity of consumer and producer are similar. So initial price was P1, initial supply curve was S1, initial quantity was Q1. Because of subsidy, supply goes down to S2, that is the diagram goes down, supply of course rises. So supply curve is S2, subsidy is lower cost of production and cause an downward or rightward shift in the supply curve, and the vertical distance between these two supply curve is the subsidy amount per unit. After the tax, the price has gone down to P2 for the consumers. Consumers will now be paying a lower price and will be buying a higher quantity Q2. So we can show all these things with the help of arrows. Now what do producers get? Producers won't only get the price consumers are paying, they will also get the subsidy that government has promised. So they will get this price P2. Now this equilibrium point new. Now add this, the amount of subsidy, and that is the vertical distance between two supply curves, and this becomes the price received by the producers. The price received by the producers rises from P1 to P3, price paid by the consumers falls from P1 to P2. So both consumer and producer benefit. Consumer because they're paying low prices, producer because they're receiving high prices. And the difference between the prices producers are getting and consumers are paying is the amount of subsidy. So I will draw this hypothetical line, and if I share this curve, now this diagram, this blue shaded line area, this rectangle shows the benefit of subsidy, the share of subsidy for the consumers. If you have seen my other video that is on the impact of indirect taxes, the higher rectangle is the burden of consumer. But in this case, the low rectangle is the share of subsidy, because subsidies help consumers by lowering prices. So that is below the equilibrium price, the consumer share. But in the case of tax, consumers lose or suffer, they are burdened because of higher taxes. So the rectangle above equilibrium price was the area that was showing the burden of tax on the consumers. So anyway, so this blue shaded area is the consumer share of subsidy, and this black shaded area is the share of producer of the subsidy. Why are producers getting a benefit? Because they are getting a higher price. Every unit they sell, they get this extra price multiplied by the quantity, that is the share of subsidy for the consumer, for the producer. So consumers get this share blue, producers get this share black, and both rectangles are almost of the equal size. Meaning, in this case, since elasticities were equal, PES and PED were equal, the share of subsidy was divided equally among consumer and producers. But elasticities are not always equal, they could be different. So now we take the diagram where we show that PED is low and PES is high. So we draw that diagram. Now I'll draw a demand curve which is the steep one, so that I can show a product whose PED is low and supply curve is flat. S1. Initial price is P1, initial quantity is Q1. Because of subsidy, supply curve shifts downward to S2 by the amount of subsidy, price for consumer goes down to P2, and the quantity rises to Q2. So these are the three arrows. Now, what is the price for the producers? This price that is paid by the consumers, air subsidy, and P3 is the price for the producers. Hypothetical line, blue shaded area, per units benefit for the consumer is this. Initially, they were paying P1, now they're paying a lower price P2. For every unit they buy, they gain this. Multiplied by the quantity, this blue shaded area shows the consumer's share of subsidy. On the other hand, for every unit producers sell, they get an extra price, and that extra price they are getting, that is the difference between P1 and P3. So every unit they sell, they get the extra price multiplied by the quantity. This black shaded area is the producer share of subsidy. So just look at this: low PED, high share of subsidy goes to the consumers. So in 4 words, if I say low elasticity, high share. Anyone who has a low elasticity will get a greater share of the subsidy. Now, this is very interesting, because if we talk about a product whose PED is 0, meaning consumer will buy that product irrespective of the price. Just think about one moment. Just think about it, that if PED is 0, I am a business person, or you think you are a business person, and you are selling a product whose PED is 0. If you lower the price, quantity demand will remain unchanged. If you charge a high price, quantity demand will remain unchanged. Now, what will happen if government gives you a subsidy? Would you give it to a consumer whose PED is 0, or you keep it to yourself? I think most of you will think that you will keep it to yourself, because consumer doesn't mind paying high price. Why to give him an incentive? There won't be any increase in sales. Why should I lower the price? So naturally, a person will think that when PED is 0, the entire subsidy will go to the producer. No, it's not correct. When PED is 0, when PED is low, who gets the share? Consumer. When PED is 0, extreme, who gets the share? The consumer. Now that is very interesting. Let me explain that. Now, what I am saying, PED is 0, and who gets the share? Even though the government has given the subsidy to the producer, but producer will be forced to transfer that subsidy to the consumer by lowering the price, even for that consumer who will not raise or lower consumption even if price changes. So this is very interesting. So entire subsidy, in this case, entire subsidy goes to the consumers. Now this is pretty interesting. So let me show this with the help of a graph that what happens. Quantity, price, demand curve is a straight vertical line because PED is 0. Supply curve is S1. Initial price is P1. Initial quantity is Q1. The government has given a subsidy. Now, maybe to a school teacher. for giving tuitions. So initial price, let's say, was 10,000. Government says every student who is studying from a teacher will get 1,000. Now teacher will say, okay, fine, PED is 0. I continue to get 10,000 from the consumer, from the student, and 1,000 from the government. I'll now get 11,000. But it won't be sustainable. Why? Because subsidy will shift the supply curve to the right. Now then there is a surplus in the market. More teachers will enter the market to earn that extra profit, because it's now become a lot more attractive to give tuitions, because you don't only get the tuition fee from the students, you also get a subsidy. So there will be a lot more teachers. There is a competition now. Now I will try as a teacher, the students come and study from me. You will try, or another teacher will try, the student goes to him. How would we attract the students? Because the market is limited. There is no extra demand which is coming in the market. So to attract customer from the other teacher, I will lower the fee. I'll say, okay, 10,000 I was getting from the student, 1,000 extra government is paying, now I'm getting 11,000. Okay, I'll be happy if I get 10,500. So I will say 500 discount to the students. So students are now paying 9,500. The fee is 9,500. I'm still better off. But even at 9,500, there's a surplus. The equilibrium will reach when I lower the price to 9,000. The equilibrium will reach when the price, demand supply will become equal, when the price would have gone down to 9,000. Now, producer, what would they get when the price is 9,000? They will get 9,000 plus 1,000 from the government. So the price for producers will remain unchanged. They'll keep getting the same price which they were getting earlier. They won't get any benefit of subsidy. However, consumers who are paying 10,000, they'll get the same service at 9,000. They'll be getting a discount of 1,000. So the entire subsidy has gone to the consumer when PED is 0. I hope you like this video.